All right, for your aerial yoga flow today, I'm just going to take a sweet little practice for the hips and the shoulders. Step your right foot in the fabric and lunge forward. Reach your hands up as high as you can. Open your heart, strengthen the back leg, and then come back to standing. And then straighten out that right leg. Keep the sole of your right foot in the hammock and fold halfway. Use your hands on the fabric for balance. And then if you want a little extra squat, you can bend your left knee and squat down into that left ankle. Okay, and then we're going to take the heel through the fabric so you're in the back of your calf and actually the hammock around your shin. And then bend your right knee and pull your heel up to your left thigh for a little number 4 squat. So you're going to squat down here and then take your arms through the hammock. So there's a crisscross at your belly and the fabric is now behind your upper back. Number 4 squat with the hammock for balance. Right, and then you can come up out of that. And we're going to move this into a pigeon. So I'm going to kneel down on the floor first, then take the arms and shoulders back through the fabric. If you can transition down to the floor with your body still between the fabrics, fine. Just be careful with that. And then you can engage your left thigh and lift your left knee or keep your left knee on the floor. Open your chest. You can fly your arms out wide. This can be intense, so only stay here for a few moments. I'm going to turn around and face back. So I'm spinning on my left leg. I'm back in that number 4 squat, but now my hips are lower than my knee and the fabric is supporting me on my right shin. There's still that crisscross going around and then behind my back. To turn around back to face forward, re-straighten your back leg and roll on your toes. And then you can keep your left knee down or you can again straighten your left leg. Another breath here, open your heart and fly your pigeon. And then come back through the hammock, kneeling on the floor for balance. Slide through to the back of your right thigh. And then a lunge with a little bit of a back bend. So it's kind of like a half camel here. Stretch your left hand to your left knee and reach your right arm up behind. You can let go of the hammock at this point. Your right knee's in the fabric, maybe your right foot on the floor. Depends on the height of your fabric. And pull up to seated. So your right leg is still on the hammock and you're lying down on the floor now. Your right leg is still on the fabric. Take your left foot to the floor, bend your left knee, and we're in bridge pose with your right leg straight and your left knee bent, left foot on the floor. So I'm just going to go through a couple different modifications here for bridge. You can then start to pull your left knee up to the ceiling and left foot up to the ceiling and straighten it. Then if you'd like, bend your right knee and press down into your right foot on the floor if it reaches. And then one extra little option here, you can take your left leg forward and float your left leg next to your right leg. Really feeling the back of those glutes work. And then lower your knee down, lower your left leg down, take your right leg out of the fabric, and then wrap your hands up in the hammock. I'm going to reach up a little higher so that I can create a little tractioning in the spine. And then just rock a little side to side here. Nice little upper back stretch. Use your arms to pull yourself up to seated and then ease into an easy seated forward fold Paschimottanasana without going too far. Press your arms forward, open your chest, and even here if you wanted to, you could move side to side. All right, and then we'll come back. And you're going to roll up to standing. Use the hammock to pull yourself up to standing. And we'll get that second side in. So now step your left foot in. And then we'll lunge forward. Hands up high. You're on the sole of your left foot on the fabric and lunging through. Lift that back heel up as high as you can get it. And open your chest. If your balance feels off here, you just might have to look at the plumb line and see where you are in respect to that. Strengthening that back leg, pull back up to standing on your right foot. And then we're going to take the right leg straight and a half forward fold here, just stretching out over your left leg. Right foot strong, right knee. Squeeze the thigh so the right knee doesn't hyperextend. And if you need a soft bend or a deep bend, squat down. You can squat as low as you'd like here. One side might be different. And then you can press back up to stand when you're ready. Straightening that right leg. And then we'll situate the right, or your left leg rather, in the hammock for pigeon. Okay, so here I'm going to go into the pigeon shape from standing. So I'm going to show you how you can move through here. So just be careful with this. If that's intense, when it's time for us to transition into that pigeon, then you would take your knee down to the floor first. And then you would go through the fabric. Okay. All right, so we're going to actually come back into the number 4 shape. I just wanted to show you these pigeon options first. So you're going to take your ankle over your thigh, bend your left knee, and take your shoulders through. You can use your hands on the fabric there, just balancing in this number 4 squat. The transitions are sometimes really tricky, so be careful when you're moving in and out. So here again, if you wanted to transition into the pigeon from kneeling, or if you wanted to go right through into this pigeon shape from that straight leg like I showed you before. And once you're there, you can start to lift your right knee and straighten out your right leg. You can fly your arms out here. You can keep your hands at heart. Right leg is really strong. We're going to turn around to face the back so that once again you're in that number 4 squatting position. But again, this time your hips are lower than your knees. And the hammock is supporting you, so it's safe to do that. Keep pressing into the fabric with your upper back so you're not pinching your armpits. Re-straighten your back leg, your right leg, to turn around again to face forward back into pigeon. And again, this is a really intense, could be really intense, so you're only here for a moment. We're going to come back to kneeling and then slide your shoulders out of the fabric. And then again, take that hammock to the back of your left leg now for this little bit of a revolved open heart bend here. So your right hand down the back of your right leg, left hand can hold the fabric or it can reach up behind you. So the first side, I reached my other hand up behind and opened up. But if you'd rather hold the fabric, it's a great option here for balance. And also to prevent scrunching in your low back. All right, come back up, and then you're going to shoot through to seated, so you can lie down with the back of your left knee in the hammock now. Your right leg is going to be on the floor in a moment, so bend your right knee and take your right foot on the floor. Left leg is in the fabric, so again here you've got all these options. You can keep your left leg straight for now, or you can bend it. I'm going to now take my right knee in and towards my chest so I can straighten my right leg up to the ceiling. You can stay there. You could then bend your left knee and place that left foot on the floor if it's still straight. And then maybe another option here is to float the right leg next to your left leg, but the right leg is pressing out really strong. Really feel those glutes working and those hamstrings working. Let your shoulders help though. And then lower down. And then again, you can take this left leg out of the hammock nice and slow. And you're going to wrist wrap here. Reach arms up a little higher, and then really work that grip strength. So this is a good exercise to work your grip strength to move into some more advanced postures on the hammock. Pulling my knees in here, I'm going to move up to boat pose. So I'm going to come up to seated on my hips. I'm going to use the fabric, one leg in the hammock. The other leg can float next to it or down on the floor. You could even use your hands up for the fabric. You can hold the fabric and lean back a little bit. Trick to that is to not lean too much into the fabric because you'll just fall back. So a lot of different options here. You can put both feet in the fabric if you'd like, but switch your legs out if you are taking one foot at a time. And again, that other foot, once you switch it out, it can rest on the floor. You could bend that knee next to the leg in the fabric, or you could stretch it up next to it. So one leg's in, one leg is out. Or again, if you want, both feet in, which I'll show you here, hooking your feet around the fabric, or if your hammock is high enough or low enough that it doesn't slide, you can just rest them. Okay, and then I'm going to reach up and grab that hammock and pull up to seated. Please feel free to take your feet out of the hammock first and then come up to seated. And then chair pose. So my hammock is rigged 2 feet off the floor so that I can take chair pose easily here. Hands are up, opening heart. I'm working on this ankle flexibility and the smooth open back bend so that when I turn into a twist here, my back is open and I'm not twisting from my low back. Rather, I'm twisting from my upper back. So here, left elbow to right thigh. I'm going to lift my heels. You could also put a block under your heels. I just like the heels lifted here. It gives me a better twist. And then you can use your right hand up on the top, on the fabric there to pull your shoulder blade open. So it's almost like I'm pulling the fabric down from the ceiling. Left elbow is hooked and I'm using my left hand on the fabric, same thing, kind of pulling the fabric down from the ceiling. Untwist, and then in between sides, we'll take a forward fold. Make sure that fabric is down a little lower towards the mid thigh rather than the sit bones, because you could slide out of it and hurt yourself. And just another breath or two here just to get out of that twist. And then when you're ready, you can move back into Utkatasana, fierce pose. And we'll move into the second side twist. Again, I'm lifting my heels, hooking right elbow on left thigh. My left hand is up as high as I can get it. I'm going to pull it down so the left hand can then slide down, and I'm bending my left elbow back towards the wall behind me so I can really open that shoulder blade and open my collarbones. Again, my right elbow is hooking my left thigh, and you can use your right hand on the fabric additionally to pull down and open your chest. Keep pressing into those toes. Keep your knees together and both knees pointing straight forward so they're not splitting apart. And then after a few rounds of breath in this twist, you'll inhale, come out of that, and then again, straighten your legs out for your forward fold if you need to resituate your fabric so it feels safe. If it feels like it's going to slide out from behind you, it probably is, so be careful, especially if you have slippery pants on. Certain fabrics don't catch the hammock, and there's not a lot of friction there. All right, inhale, come back up. And then I'm going to come down to the floor, out of the hammock, down to my knees. And I'm going to take this fabric now, wrap my arms up. So I'm going to show you a few different progressions for Camel Ustrasana. I've wrapped my arms up twice. So I've got 2 wraps on my wrists. The hammock is behind my upper back, and I'm just simply leaning back. Second variation, unwrap once. You'll go a little lower. And the third variation, I'm going to unwrap all the way and simply just reach up and grab the hammock and then lean back. So this is more into Kapotasana, King Pigeon, or just pigeon pose is pigeon. So eventually without the hammock, your head would come down towards the floor, down to your feet. But this is actually Laghu Vajrasana, reclining thunderbolt. This is a really good way to practice this with the hammock. I love it. And that Laghu Vajrasana turns into Kapotasana. And then just take a moment to sit. You can come out of the hammock with a wrist wrap. Hammock is down in front of you, and you can just bow in there for a moment, maybe forward fold. I'm going to bend my elbows so I can take a child's pose, and then a little bit of a back stretch. So pull back up to the ceiling, pull your back up, pull your elbows down. Again, it's like you're pulling the hammock down from the ceiling. All right, I'm going to inhale all the way through to my belly for a little bit of a back bend here. And if this is too intense on your elbows, you can always just let the hammock go and come down to your belly and take a floor-based cobra or upward facing dog. And then coming back up into a seated position, child's pose. And then up to seated. All right, so I'm going to come up to stand and situate downward facing dog. So I'm going to walk forward until the fabric catches my hip creases and then walk back. So I can feel the fabric is in front of my plumb line at a diagonal, and the hammock is pulling my hips up. I'm just going to keep walking back until it feels comfortable for me. And you can even fly here, little floating child's pose or anahatasana. So I'm in a child's pose-ish shape. So it's really like anahatasana or tabletop with my hips hanging. But this is a wonderful traction for my back, and it doesn't put pressure on your knees or ankles. If child's pose does that for you, this is a great modification. All right, coming back forward into downward facing dog. It's a little crawling. I like that. It's always fun. Makes you feel like a kid again. And stretch your arms out, stretch your knees back. Hips are pulled by the hammock. All right, so I'm going to come back again a little bit, crawl back now, some elbow crawling back. So you could actually take this a few times, forward and back crawling. And then I'm going to come into forearm plank here to set up for headstand Shirshasana. And this is a great place to stay. Again, you can go back to those crawling back and forth, and that could be your practice, set up for headstand. Here in headstand, I'm not putting my head on the floor until I get my feet hooked around the fabric and start to lift up. And then my head on the floor, and then my hips move over my head. So here you can take one leg up to the ceiling, keep the other knee bent into the chest. That's what's holding you up here. And then you could wrap that leg up a couple extra times if you can reach it. If you're not too far forward, you probably will be. But then the other leg can come up. I mean, play with your hammock. Everybody's hammocks are going to be different, differently rigged. Mine is rigged as a single point on a spinner, so it's going to move different. And then if you feel really confident here, you can take both legs up and wrap your feet up. And then squeeze the fabric with your feet or press out into the fabric in a wide angle. So a couple of different options here to play with getting those legs involved in the headstand game. Keep pressing down into your elbows though, and keep your neck and shoulders strong. If you feel like you're going to fall, let the fabric help you. Don't fight it, and just feel it instead of trying to see it or know where it is. Just feel it. And when you're ready, come down slowly. I'm going to roll up to my knees and just get that hammock off, get out of my hammock, and then come down to child's pose. And just take a few moments here resting. And let your blood pressure settle. Let your breath calm down. And let your heart rate simmer down. And any mental fear that you may have been, hanging on to with that posture. All right, coming up to seated then. And then come to standing. So I'm going to work into shoulder stand. So I'm going to open this fabric a lot, all the way. I'm going to shake it open. I'm going to stand in front of the hammock, turn around, and grab about 8 to 10 handfuls of fabric. Pull that under me like I'm pulling a skirt down. And then I'm going to sit back into the fabric. So the fabric only comes around my shoulders. My head is out, my neck is out, but make sure the fabric does come completely around your shoulders. Hands come up and grab the edges of the fabric, and then my feet kick into that fabric and then push the fabric away. So there's a little blanket over my feet. So there's a little flap of extra fabric over my ankles up to my knees. And then go upside down in a pike. So you're here in halasana plow pose. If this is digging in your upper back, you're going to take your chin into your chest. This is just nice to hang here, though I like this. And you can stay here, or you can move it into shoulder stand. And right here is where you're going to feel the digging in your neck if your head is down to the floor. So shoulder stand in the middle of the room, your neck is not extended, your neck is in flexion. So copy that, mimic that pose. This is shoulder stand. So chin to chest, it's going to take a lot of neck muscles to do it. You might get tired. If you can wrap your feet up around the fabric, you can maybe even come into a little bat hang or a vampire hang. It's like Lost Boys. But do make sure that your shoulders are covered up in that fabric, so if they're sliding out, make sure you got a good grip on that hammock. And then situate yourself where you're comfortable. If your feet in the middle are fine, that's fine. It's a lot of extra core work, so if this feels wobbly, wrap those legs up. And then coming back into plow pose, take your chin to your chest. It's like a reclining forward fold here. And then I'm going to roll out back down to seated. Waterfall next, or little fish pose. So my hammock is lower. I can actually play with fish pose. I want the top of my head on the floor, and I want my hands to come up as high as I can and pop that chest through the shoulders. Press out through your feet. And this is a really good practice for fish pose, Matsyasana. All right, and then as you're ready, you can start to crawl your feet out. Feet on the floor if you don't like just your head being on the floor. And then pull yourself up nice and slow. That's an inhale. Use a big inhale to come up out of that, or else you'll get dizzy and lightheaded. And then just a bit of a seated forward fold here in the fabric just to calm down, again, the blood pressure and the nervous system. All right, and then we'll start to come back into reclining position. I'm going to put my head in the fabric for a relaxation pose. I have like my feet on the floor so I don't spin. That's why I have my hammock lower, so I do have control of that. And if you'd like, you can take your feet fully in the fabric for a full floating shavasana. And just take a few moments to rest and feel your body suspended in the air. Feel the space around you. And if you prefer to come down to the floor for relaxation, please do.